roll us through these boxes here and give the audience a sense of like what is coming at us and why Amy is going to be experiencing a tsunami of data coming her way.
SEC with climate disclosure rules that are coming, where for oil and gas operators, clearly methane emissions will be material. And again, it's yet to be seen how this will be implemented. So again, it's meant as the big overview. I think the focus for today is EPA compliance in particular, but we should keep this in mind as we're talking long-term strategies.
Products going into the atmosphere. You want to find those leaks, but given the different settings in which folks are producing or transporting natural gas, it's challenging to find those in advance. So the technologies have been improving, and Stefan and other colleagues have really been offering some really great options for that. And it's going to be transparent. It's going to be known. And in that regard, and then I'll stop for a minute, those are kind of the two big themes. But on continuing with transparency, be notifying operators who they think are responsible, and those operators would have some duty of responding to that. So the days when I think.
My apologies. Yeah, that's a good question. We definitely keep close tab on what's happening regulatory-wise. We are engaging closely with agencies where possible, also together with other advanced measurement solution providers. I think EPA has put a lot of thought into it, and states as well. So I think the ability to use advanced technologies for regulatory compliance will come 6 to 12 months.
Yeah. I think those feedback loops on the workflows on how we respond to allow for ingestion of data and to develop a consistent approach, a consistent response. And I think that's going to be critical, in my opinion, is consistency. Measurement is an example of a pig trap. A simple pig trap. Every time you open it, it's a volume of gas. How much did we sequestrate into the ground? When I think the actual leak detection and measurement, LDAR, it's leak detection and repair. It's measurement of efforts. Yeah, it's certainly tricky, and that is that data tsunami. And in some days it might feel like herding cats. But I think, where does a person start if they haven't already within their organization of taking that first step with a dash of risk?
Modified, adjusted, improved, or even just leveraged in order to create this system where you are regularly looking for these potential leaks. And as you said, it's also about repair. I mean, you want to, as quickly as you can, these regulations get quite detailed. Another trend I would say is they are covering an increasing percentage of the kit that you have out there in the field. So something that may not be covered today could be covered tomorrow. So you want to just look across that. And I think, stepping back.
Management, accounting, production accounting, financial accounting.
Yeah, thank you. So there's these different stakeholders that will all have to deal with emissions data. There's the operations, who is to root cause analysis and fix. There's environmental compliance. There's so that's, I think, gonna jumpstart the business case discussion.
Yeah, I think that speaks to Bob saying
and then your ED is going to look better and so on.
I think that speaks to Bob just saying start. And Amy, as an organization on your side, being threading that needle to the entire organization, bringing things forward such as how are we going to monitor intermittent super emitters. We're getting smart about capital deployment of where the problem that we're picking off first. And I think that's, in my opinion, that's how when we then build organizational trust at the field level, to the roustabouts, to the pumpers, to the engineer, to the accountant, authorizing, the capital purchases, and then the ongoing OpEx that are landing on the manager's plates. And I can only imagine, Amy, when you look at these regulations, these are, transcending state boundaries. Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, federal, state, county? What are those? What are you looking for in technology?
Be coming from, but what happens is you're directing your operations team to go out on site with really sparse data, and that becomes super frustrating for everybody. So pretty quickly as a solution, I started cross-referencing all the alert times with our security camera footage to try and see if, had there been a thief hatch left open after a truck hauler had been on site, or was there some sort of equipment maintenance going on at that same time? So
Tank farm here.
Yeah, thank you. So a tank farm is a good example of the challenges that we see. I mean, just briefly, you can see a Kuva camera here on the right. It's integrated with infrared and visible camera, edge compute, communications, anemometer for wind speed.
And in terms of benefits of that, on the regulatory side, I mean, there are many potential benefits, but one of them on the regulatory side is that if you have a continuous emissions monitor and can establish, because the tools are out there, the satellites and the overflights and so on, where these emissions events will be publicly disclosed in one form or another, and whatever the government is mandating or prescribing in these regulations, however that may change.
And it's those moments in between that count that will lead to transparency, the data systems that can integrate in to answer the organizational workflow.
Because the kinds of the ways of finding the emissions, the technologies, the systems you use are going to have to be very much tailored to your business. And consider this a business and operational activity. So that's one. And two, get out ahead of this.
I'd want to start seriously evaluating, where are the weaknesses in our emission estimates? Where do we have a lack of data? What data can we refine or start collecting at an even finer level? Do we need to monitor? And if so, for what reason? I'd say, especially for monitoring, there can be a really sharp learning curve in deployment and finding which system or systems work for you or not.
Few questions here in the Q&A. Audience, please keep them coming. And of course, on the screen here, you can always email info@sensible-edp.com, and we'll happily connect the panel back to your question. Further in British Columbia, helicopter access only versus a Gulf of Mexico helicopter boat access to
start testing them.
I think this leads into a question here that's, speaking to being oil and gas operators are calculating their emissions to report to the EPA.
Component by component to prove with some sort of measurement that their actual emissions are lower. And then there's the extra factor, which is the so-called super emitter events. And that's probably the one part we're not